Greetings to everyone tuning in and welcome to our first Feminist Fridays of 2022, where we will be exploring the living legacies of revolutionary African women who have contributed to advancing the struggle against imperialism and capitalism, the struggle for advancing dignity, humanity, and justice. This was a campaign that began with the Tulindlovu campaign initiated last year on International Women's Day on the 8th of March. Where from the legacy of Tulindlovu, a woman from Abahlali Basemjondolo, the shack dwellers movement in South Africa, who was committed to advancing the struggle for the working class, the struggle for dignity, the struggle for housing through the landless movement, was sadly killed for her contribution as an exemplary leader in her community. So for the next couple of months, we will be exploring the lives and legacies of different women and trying to uplift what their contribution was to class struggle today and in the past. Joining us today will be Blandina Binde from UFAWUZ, which is the United Food and Allied Workers Union of Zimbabwe. She joined the organization in 2009 as an administrator and later became an organizing secretary in 2013. Currently, she's the head of the Women and Youth Department since about October 2021. And in the process, they work to promote the interests of workers in the food industry, as well as in the bigger picture, eradicating injustice and struggling against the oppression of capitalism. Thank you, Blandina, for joining us today. We know that time is very valuable, but we're so glad to have you. And if you can tell us a little bit about your organization and what are some of the feminist struggles it is confronting today.
United Food and Allied Workers Union, in short, UFAWUZ, is an organization that was formed in 1962 with the aim of promoting employees' rights and interests. UFAWUZ have a membership of over 7,000 from its subsectors, namely food processing, meat, fish, poultry, and abattoirs, sweets and confectionery, sugar production and milling, detergents, edible oils, milling industry, sugar refinery, and brewing and distilling. UFAWUZ is glued to three basic principles, that is unity, independence, democracy. Its day-to-day activities are run under admin, organizing and mobilizing, education, research and international relations, and women and youth department. UFAWUZ offers the following in promoting workers' rights and interests. Firstly, we offer legal representation. Secondly, we offer training to our members, our rank and file members, for them to understand their workplace rights, the hearing procedures, and any other labor-related issues. We equip workers, both women and men, to impart knowledge on quality bargaining power and leadership skills. We negotiate their working conditions. We negotiate their wages and salaries. We promote democracy in the industry, thereby promoting every worker, whether male or female, casuals, pensioners, contracts, permanent employees. We ensure that there is no gender discrimination in the industry. UFAWUZ have noted with concern that female workers are often oppressed in the working environment. They are often abused either emotionally, physically, mentally, or even sexually. And therefore, the trade union has realized that the union's aim and objectives can never be accomplished if the female workers remains oppressed. Therefore, currently, We are advocating for parental leave. We have noted with consent that at early stages of a newborn baby, the employees need leave from the employment to care for a child following its birth and also to bond with the child. Of recent, the bill in which UFAWUZ have participated in advocating for the removal of restrictions on maternity leave intervals or on employed women, which was provided for on 24-month intervals, has been removed. And also the maternity restrictions period of up to 3 periods have been removed also. So also the restriction that one to be able to go for maternity leave should have served the employer for a year. That restriction is also been removed. Those are some of the activities as union that we were participating in trying to fight oppression concerning gender-related issues. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And it must be very challenging to advance this struggle, given the fact that the struggles and histories of revolutionary women are too often diminished or hidden from us, particularly on the African continent. So I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit about one of the women who advanced the struggle for liberation, Mbuya Nehanda, as she's popularly known as.
Yeah, the history of revolutionary women are too often diminished and hidden. According to the African culture, men are supposed to be natural leaders, decision makers, providers, whereas women are supposed to be caregivers, supporters and followers of men. Even if women plays an important role, not only in politics, but in all walks of life, their efforts are often go unnoticed. Therefore, the Union UFAWUZ seeks to instill confidence in women in the food industry and in the society at large on their rightful place. That is equal partner in the fighting against oppression and exploitation. I will go on to introduce, to tell more about Mbuya Nehanda. There are two persons in Mbuya Nehanda. The Mbuya Nehanda, the Shikiro, and that is the spirit medium that possessed or got itself into Charwe, Nyakasikana, the living person, in 1884. Charwe, the daughter of Chitaura. History says Charwe is the origin of Wata clan, which lived in Mazoe area at the source of Mazoe River, at a place called Christonbank. Sometimes in 1800s, Nehanda manifested as a spirit medium in Charwe. The Wata clan accepted the spirit mediums as one of the spirit mediums of Wata clan of the totem Mfakose or Hera. Nehanda has noticed with concern that the coming in of white people to the Black people's land was mainly to bring Christianity as a religion for the purpose to divert attention of the masses from the real important fundamental economic, social, and political issues. Christianity religion is one of the forms that the whites had taken advantage of in penetrating the Black people's space through spiritual oppression, which everywhere weighs down heavily the masses of the Black people so that they would control the means of production by way of colonization. They wanted access to political power. It is this spirit medium of Mbuya Nehanda that becomes so powerful and influential in fighting colonialism, in particular the dispossession of their land in Mazowe, and they forced the relocation to communal reserves in Chiweshe and Mzarabani. The spirit medium Nehanda, after the assassination of Charwe, entered in itself into another female as well, whose name is not discovered in history. I've already highlighted earlier on that the history of women often goes unnoticed. It was by the time this spirit entered into Charo, it was the second time the spirit was being used. And later on, after the death of Charo, the spirit also entered itself into another female whose name is not disclosed in history. But it was written and quoted in Kumbirai Kangai's book, The Struggle for Zimbabwe, and confirms that they carried the spirit medium of Nehanda from Zarabani to Chifombo-based area in Mozambique. In brief, that's the introduction of the Mbuya Nehanda Nyakasikana.
Wow, that is really interesting, and especially the way you tied it into the fact that women's histories are erased and it is a struggle to even discover them and find them, particularly if you think about the fact that African people were colonized, and so a lot of our stories weren't told, and we also had an oral history prior to that. So once that oral history loses the legacy of people telling it, you don't have the same level of understanding. So can you maybe tell us just a little bit about how Nehanda contributed to the emancipation of women and men during the time Zimbabwe was fighting colonialism? Because this was the first big movement of anti-colonial struggle, correct? It was in the early 1900s, late 1800s.
Yeah, firstly, Nehanda was the center of communication between the living Shona people and the underworld. The spirit medium was so influential in warning, it kept on giving warning to the Shona people against the white Europeans' entry into Mashonaland region, and agitated people to take up arms. And Charwe, through the spirit, led a rebellion against the British colony by mobilizing both male and female to fight and resist the dispossession of their land and economic and social freedom. This resulted in the spirit medium to coordinate through Charwe, the possessed person, with other equally fighting spirits like Kagovi and Mukwati to make the resisting colonization. History says the spirit treated both male and female as being capable of fighting. Several women and men in the second Chimrenga were encouraged by the same spirit medium to free themselves from colonialism. History says when Charwe was assassinated and murdered in Salisbury, now called Harare, she predicted that her bones shall resurrect and continue with the fight against imperialism. It is this statement that inspired most male and female to join the struggle.
And speaking of that, in terms of joining the struggle, keeping the spirit for fighting against oppression alive, how is your organization making sure that her spirit to fight for people living today continues? How is her legacy remembered today and interpreted?
Yeah, the spirit to fight was the cause, with Mbuya Nehanda exploring dying down as a result of, firstly, the curriculum itself, how our children are brought up, how they are taught in schools. The imperialist is trying to distort our history through the teachings. The imperialist does not reflect the true picture of what transpired during the struggle for independence, because the setup is mainly centered on men, and men is always dominated the history, leaving most women in the struggle, a lot of information being distorted or somehow hidden. The other issue is that naturally, most people look down upon issues to do with the spirit. However, in some areas in particular, where Nehanda was influential, the teachings and traditions practiced are still trying to preserve and make others emulate the practices and encourage the spirit medium. UFAWUZ, in a bid to make sure that the spirit to fight continues, we fight for social justice and against corruption. We are inspired by the spirit to fight for revolution. We are inspired by the spirit of Mbuya Nehanda. That spirit of Mbuya Nehanda to fight still lives in us as an organization.
Thank you so much, Blandina, for sharing this. Given that the organization is a trade union, UFAWUZ, based in Zimbabwe, which we know in the organized industrial sector is often dominated by males, how is the organization involving women like you and appreciating women's contributions to the struggle for liberation?
All right, thank you, Comrade. As UFAWUZ, we've noticed with concern that normally the objective of fighting against oppression can never be accomplished without the involvement of women. Therefore, we've taken note of some historical things that were being done in industry. For example, women used to be paid lesser than their male counterparts. And even the job opportunities that was offered, most key positions were given to the male counterparts. And UFAWUZ has been actively participating, though there is current labor laws which seeks to liberate such unevenness, but in practice, it's still there. So as UFAWUZ, we keep on keeping an eye on the employers to make sure that such activities are not going on. Also, on the side of women, we have platforms where we commemorate Women's Day. We also do trainings so as to persuade women's participation in programs that encourage emancipation of women in its national level. Also to boost women, unity and confidence in women towards eradication of injustice and capital oppression. Thank you.
What do you, Blandina, as a woman who is fighting for working class emancipation, what do you believe are the values or traits or contributions that women should be uplifting and should be advancing?
Yeah, we should emancipate the women so that they can stand their rightful position. They can stand their rights. They need to be trained so that they know that we are equal partners, both male and female. Historically, women were often left behind on key positions, and they do not normally contribute to the economic and political issues. Hence, the need for us to impart knowledge on them as women. I believe women also have something to do in all walks of life, and we can even do best in other positions as compared to the male. So we have this duty to continue educating the women so that they can stand their rightful position in all walks of life, not only in politics or at workplace, but in all walks of life.
Thank you so much. And you've already made a stellar contribution in terms of educating us a little bit about the history of Nehanda, what's going on in Zimbabwe, what your organization has been doing about the inequalities that women face. And so thank you very much for your contribution. And we hope we will continue to exchange and learn from one another in the future.
All right, comrades, thank you.
We had our first Feminist Fridays of 2022 that was quite successful, and we hope that Blandina will be joining us in other spaces in the future as we try to fortify and strengthen the feminist movement on the African continent. As Pan Africa Today, we thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you soon.